Hello and welcome to More Talks. I am W.C. Moore. This is Biden's Town Hall from October 21st, 2021. Part 1.
Let's go to the audience. This is Nicholas Vaught. He's the coordinator of the Applied Liberal Studies program at Morgan State University. He's a Democrat. Nicholas?
Morgan State.
Morgan State.
All right, man. Good. I was poking there.
So my wife and I have two young boys, Arthur and Teddy. However, the cost of childcare is nearly double our mortgage. We want to have more children, but even though we earn a good salary now, childcare is so expensive. So how will this new infrastructure plan help middle-class families pay for childcare?
Well, if you can't afford children, don't have children. And if you can afford children and you can't afford childcare, then somebody has to stay at home. That's how normal people do it. That's how it's always been done.
Let me ask you, how old are your kids?
3.5 and 6 months old.
God love you. Well, look, there's two pieces. There's the child care, having someone take care of your child while you are working, while you and your wife are working. Under this proposal I have, no one will have to pay unless you're making more than individually. You're each making, making over 300 grand, 150,000 a piece.
For educators.
Oh, God. By the way, I'm married to one, Dr. Biden, right here. So you will not have to pay more than 7% of your income for child care, 7%. And the way we do that is we provide for the ability to have child care centers funded. The money won't even go to you.
So this is just more government spending. We need the government to come down, not to go up. Knock 90% off government. And then we can save a lot of money in taxes, and that tax money can go towards people's childcare. You are spending money that the US can't afford.
The figure income, you get 7% with the total cost. But there's another piece here. You now are qualified to be able to have a child tax credit. It used to be that if you had enough money to pay significant taxes, you could write off $2,000 for every child you had and reduce some of your taxes. But if you were making $60,000 a year, you didn't have that much to write off. You didn't get anything.
That is a lie. You get money back then. That is how I spent. When I first came to the US, as a family, we spent about $8,000 a year in taxes and got $12,000 back.
Well, I call this a tax break for middle-class people. If you're making in the $150,000 range right now, you're in a situation where you can get, if you have a child under 7, $350. If you have a child over 7, between 7 and 17, you can get $300, and you get a direct payment. The IRS sends you money.
Only half of this is a direct payment, and then the other half you get with your taxes when you get your taxes back, like you did before.
Joe Manchin wants a work requirement with your enhanced tax credit for kids. Is that something you would support?
That's a good idea from a Democrat there.
No. Here's the deal. All these people are working anyway. And by the way, why should somebody who is not working and has has a $1 million trust fund, why should they get the benefit, and someone making 60 grand and not working but staying home, why should they not get anything?
What Senator Manchin means, I believe, I don't want to put words in his mouth, what he means is you can't live off unemployment and get this credit.
I don't get that.
You're also proposing, for the first time ever, federal paid parental leave. And
yes, well, that's a different issue. Yeah,
right, a different issue. Right. Yeah. This is in your proposal. How much time off would parents actually get under your proposal? Because at one point you talked about 12 weeks. Now there's reports it's down to maybe 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I thought this was meant to be the audience asking questions, Anderson, not you.
It is down to 4 weeks, and the reason it's down to 4 weeks, they can't get 12 weeks. And but look, here's the deal, guys. How many people do you know? Not a joke. Or maybe yourself, have had a circumstance where you are working like a devil. You're making $7 an hour, $15 an hour, $20 an hour, and you have a child that's sick at home, or you have a mother or father.
If someone's making $7 an hour, then they're working illegally, because the federal minimum wage is higher than that.
Father, husband and wife, son or daughter, and you need to stay home to help them. We're one of the few industrial countries in the world that does not have paid leave. So that when you stay home to help that person, to take care of that person, you're still getting your pay. And it does not hurt the business at all.
Define paid leave. Are you on about vacation? You get vacation. Now, you do get more in other countries, and you get it quicker in other countries, but you get vacation over here. That's all paid leave is.
The business isn't paying for it. The federal government is paying for it. It's a little bit like, as I said, a tax cut for people who are not able to otherwise take care of their families.
Again, federal government should not be paying this. Federal government should keep out of our lives.
And look, I'm looking out here, and a lot of you are part of that sandwich generation. You have young kids, and you have aging parents. And one of the things all the polling data shows, Anderson, is people are more concerned about taking care of the elderly because they don't know what to do than they are even their children.
I want to talk about this. I want you to meet Vanessa Antrim from Bowie, Maryland. She's retired. She's a caregiver for her elderly parents.
God love you.
She's a Democrat. Vanessa, your question.
Yes, Mr. President. My parents have been married for 73 years, and both are dealing... Yes. Both of them are dealing with dementia. My father, who is a veteran, is completely bedridden, and my mom is experiencing issues with walking. I have found the process for me to provide care for them in my home very hard. They have worked all their life only for me to experience a lot of red tape to provide supports in a loving home environment.
The red tape is because government's involved. Get government out of there.
What is being done to support the elderly, especially for a middle-class family like mine?
Well, first of all...
What he needs to say is, first of all, we will cut all the red tape.
If my mom were here, she'd say, you're a good daughter, number one.
Thank you.
Number two, I was in a situation like you, where I was making more money. I was making $42,000 a year as a senator at the time, although I was listed the poorest man in the Senate for 36 years, but I still made more money than most people because the Senate salaries kept going up. What happened was...
There is no way you're the poorest man in the Senate with the millions you've taken from Russia and from China.
My dad got sick, and he was in hospice, so Jill and I took my dad home. We took care of him in our house. But we were lucky because we had the ability to have, I have a sister who's an angel and a brother who's a wonderful guy, and we all took turns in our house taking care of them. But here's the deal. Right now, under Medicaid, there are 860,000, I think it's 860, don't hold me the exact number, it's over 800,000, who qualify for home health care aid for their parents. But there's no money there. There's no money there. So what we do is we provide the funding for Medicaid to allow you to be able to keep, if your parents had their home, keeping them in their home if you want it, or get help in your home with home care from professionals helping you take care of them, helping you take care of them. And in many cases where you're not taking care of them in
So if there's no money, how are you doing this?
your own home, but they're staying in their home, you're going to be able to have the ability to have someone come in and make their meals for them. They don't have to be there 24/7. So there's a lot of things we're doing. In addition to the process, we're going to be able to train up those home care workers who are usually minority women, women of color, as well as immigrants. And they have the capacity to learn more as they go along to move to the point where they can become practical nurses and things like that. So it makes a lot of sense, and it's cheaper than it is to not do it.
One of the other things that Democrats are looking to do is to expand Medicare to include dental, vision, and hearing as well. Given all the negotiations that are going on, will all three of those still be covered?
That's a reach. And the reason why it's a reach, I think it's a good idea.
It's a good idea, yes, but you have no money.
and it's not that costly in relative terms, especially if we allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. But here's the thing.
Why don't you allow them to negotiate drug prices anyway? The government spend way too much money. That is why government should get out, because they waste money.
Mr. Manchin is opposed to that, as is, I think, Senator Sinema is as well.
Opposed to all of them?
Opposed to all three, because they don't want, he says he doesn't want to further burden Medicare so that, because it will run out of its ability to maintain itself in X number of years.
Okay, so what's wrong with that argument?
There's ways to fix that, but not interested in that part either. But look,
but tell us the ways to fix it. If you tell us the ways to fix it and they're right, then his people, the people he's working for can tell him.
Joe's not a bad guy. I mean, he's a friend, and he's always, at the end of the day, come around and voted.
So he's not a bad guy, but he always comes around to your way of thinking in the end. And you say you're bipartisan. That is not bipartisanship.
But here's the point. We're in a situation now where if you are in a circumstance that you're not able to provide, well, let me cut to the chase. I'm taking too long. One of the things we're able to do in the meantime is the most expensive of these things would be dental. Okay? Now, we're talking about, don't have a deal on it yet, maybe getting an $800 voucher from Medicare for dental work that you may need. And the hearing is a very important thing because, as Kristen Sinema, who supports this, points out, hearing is directly related to dementia. When you can't hear, you have a problem, and it impacts on dementia.
But again, where's this money coming from?
So we're able to, and it's cheaper to be able to take care of the hearing, but I think I've been able to take care of that without changing Medicare, because what's happening is now you have these hearing aid companies. You no longer are going to have to go to the doctor and spend $5,000 and get it. You can go and buy at Walgreens and buy over-the-counter hearing aids. So the harder one, though, is we haven't gotten a consensus yet on how to deal with seeing glasses. But so it's not done yet, is the answer.
All right. I want to get into the question, and this is Ben Frederick. Ben is a realtor, lifelong resident of Baltimore. He's an independent, serves on the Maryland Multi-Housing Association.
By the way, Ben, the Bidens all hail from Baltimore beginning in 1850. I don't know how the hell they kicked me out, but I'm...
Ben, what's your question?
IRS data shows that the top 5% of income earners pay 60% of the income taxes in this country. I hear you repeatedly say that the wealthy are not paying their fair share of income taxes. What is the percentage of income that you believe is fair?
That is a very good question. You must be one of the rich guys if you're defending the rich, but that's what you Democrats do. But that is a good question.
Well, I think what's fair is that the present tax code, the highest tax rate is 35%, number one, okay?
Why is there a highest tax rate? That is unfair. Tax everybody the same rate.
Number two, you're in a circumstance where corporate America is not paying their fair share. And I come from the corporate state of the world, Delaware. More corporations in Delaware than every other state in the union combined, okay? Now here's the deal, though. You have 55 corporations, for example, in the United States of America, making over $40 billion, don't pay a cent.
That is a lie.
Not a single little red cent. Now, I don't care. I'm a capitalist. I hope you can be a millionaire or a billionaire.
You're not a capitalist. You're a democratic communist.
Not a problem. But at least pay your fair share. Chip in a little bit.
Well, let me follow up, because Kirsten Sinema, who you mentioned, Senator Sinema, is opposed to any tax rate hikes for corporations and for high earners. Speaker Pelosi suggested today she could accept that. The question is, A, would you accept that? No rate hikes, tax rate hikes for corporations or high earners? And if so, how would you pay for this plan otherwise?
Because you don't have to, look, here's the deal. The tax rate, the corporate tax rate was 37%. Barack and I thought it should...
Really, 35 point something up to 37? You need to know your numbers before you come out quoting them.
Come down. We thought it should come down to 28%. In the process, it came down to 21% under Trump, which even the corporate leaders, and you know if you're in real estate, major real estate, ask them. They know they should be paying a little more than 21% because the...
What do you mean they should be paying more? What do you mean should? If the tax rate is 21%, then they should not be paying more than 21%.
The idea that if you're a school teacher and a firefighter, you're paying at a higher tax rate than they are as a percentage of your taxes. But here's the deal. I believe that we can we can pay for this whole thing. I have it written in a card here, but I won't bore you with the detail. But
we want the details. That is the idea of asking you the question, so you can give us the details. Otherwise, you're just trying to dumb it down for people, and you're trying to hide the truth from them.
For example, if you in fact made sure that you paid a minimum 15%, minimum 15%, if you're paying nothing, minimum 15, that's over almost $400 billion over 10 years.
So you would be willing to go along with what Senator Sinema...
You just said it was 21%. That's higher than 15%.
And it seems like Speaker Pelosi is willing to consider no tax hike for corporations or for high-earning individuals.
Here's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to make sure that we pay for everything without anyone making less than $400,000 paying a single cent more in taxes. That's my objective. And so there's ways to do that. For example, you covered it on your show, the minimum international tax of 15%. But no.
What about inflation? Inflation prices go up, so sales tax is higher, so I'm paying more money in sales tax. That's more money in taxes, and you said not a single cent.
No actual rate hikes.
No, I don't think we're going to be able to get the vote. Look, when you're in the United States Senate and you're a president of the United States and you have 50 Democrats, every one is a president. Every single one. So you got to work things out. But
what about the 50 Republicans? Don't you care about them?
Where I am is I'm hearing now, I'll turn on the news and I'll hear that Biden's caved on such a... Look, Biden's a simple proposition. Biden's going to get all the elements of these two bills have profound impact on economic growth, reduce crazy inflation, don't add a penny to the debt, as well as grow the economy. I have 17 Nobel laureates in economics sent me a letter recently saying that my proposals would actually reduce inflation, diminish pressure. But here's the...
Please let us see those letters, because we don't believe you.
The point. The point of it all is that I'm prepared. I can't think of anything that was consequential and changing the circumstance for the middle class and working class in America that came as a consequence of a single piece of legislation. I got a portrait of Roosevelt in my office, okay? Social Security is not anything like it is today when he passed it. It evolved, it moved, it grew. So
it got worse, yes.
So I'm prepared to do the things that can get done now that can begin to change the lives of ordinary Americans, to give them a fighting chance and come back and try to get others later.
Let's talk about another one of those things. This is Sandra Gutman, an English professor at Loyola University, also a Democrat. Sandra, what's your question?
And by the way, you got another English professor who teaches writing here.
Thank you for taking my question, Mr. President. We've heard in the news that the proposal for 2 years of free community college may be cut from your economic package. An educated citizenry is absolutely crucial to solving complex problems like climate change and the systematic inequities in this country. We hope that this is not cut from the package.
Please explain your systematic inequities that are in this country.
But if it is, what can you do to ensure that all Americans can get the education that they need to face these issues?
First,
they can get a job, save up, and do it.
Well, Professor, you made a very profound point. I'm not being sarcastic. And that is, and Jill uses
Why would she think you were being sarcastic?
A slightly different phrase. Any country that out-educates us will out-compete us. Any country that out-educates will out-compete us. You have the vast majority of the 37 major countries in the world, economies, we rank 35 in our investment in education. We're in a situation where, if you think about it, what caused us to move ahead and dominate the 20th century in the late 1900s, and the early 1900s, late 1890s, we came up with, said, 12 years of free education. That was revolutionary at the time. I mean, seriously.
Was that really that far back? I'll have to check on that.
Now, if we were sitting down today and saying, no, we got to put together an education system, raise your hand if anybody thinks 12 years is enough to compete in the 21st century. So
12 years is about the same, if not more, than everybody else.
So that's why what I propose is free school for every 3- and 4-year-old in America, no matter what their background. All the data shows that no matter what home they come from, they increase exponentially their prospects of succeeding all the way through 12 years of school. You know,
data also shows that if people stayed married, then the kids would succeed more. But a lot of your policies are against marriage.
You know all the statistics. The statistics go that if you come from a home where there's no books in the home and a single mom or a single dad, they're not well educated, they don't talk a lot. The kid from a average middle class home versus that home will go to school having heard 1 million more words spoken than the child who didn't. A gigantic disadvantage.
Mr. President, the question was on on community colleges, which was a big campaign promise that you made. You talked about that a lot on the campaign trail.
Yeah, and I'm going to get it done. And if I don't, I'll be sleeping alone for a long time. But here's the deal. So far, Mr. Manchin and one other person has indicated they will not support free community college.
Again, there is 50 Republicans. Talk to them. I mean, look at Romney. Romney's basically a Democrat anyway. And you're going to blame everything on Joe Manchin? Really?
So what I think we can get done is we can significantly increase the amount of money by $500 payment for Pell Grants. And Pell Grants are available and they can provide for up to 30% of the cost of community college and or college help tuition. So it's not going to get us there. It's not going to get us the whole thing, but it is a start. I'm convinced, absolutely positively convinced, that we're going to be able to, and by the way, we have in the legislation money for community colleges that dealing with apprenticeships, dealing with teaching people particular skills that are will not get you a 2-year degree, but will teach you the skill.
Again, why is the government paying for this? Apprenticeships should be paid for by the company who want that kind of skill.
So I think we can get all of that done this time out. But I promise you, I guarantee you, we're going to get free community college in the next several years, across the board.
What was that conversation when you realized you weren't going to be able to get it in this bill at this time, and you had dinner with Dr. Biden that night? What was that conversation like? How'd you break that news?
Well, the White House has a lot of bedrooms. And she went like this, down the hall.
All right.
No, look, it really makes a gigantic difference. And think of this. You have more countries in the world with providing professional education beyond 12 years. We rank like, I think it's, don't hold me the number, I think it's 16 or 17 in the world.
Please name the ones above.
The United States of America, for God's sake. This is about putting us in the game.
No, this is just about the government spending more money. The more the government back up colleges and back up student loans, the higher the prices the colleges are going to charge. If your government don't back it up, prices will come down or no one will go. It is just basic economics.
This is John Meche. He's a doctoral candidate at Morgan State University and an independent. John, welcome.
Where are you?
Morgan State.
Morgan State.
I know all these Morgan man. I've spoken there a couple of times, and by the way, the guy who runs my operation is anyway. I keep talking about Delaware State, but they keep saying about Morgan State. You know
Morgan
what I mean?
State. President Biden, I had so much faith in your election win, but based on history, the bipartisan efforts of the Democratic Party are held hostage by rogue moderates and Republicans. Why not do like the Republicans and usher through the Democratic agenda?
Well,
But when do the Republicans push anything through? They don't. Otherwise, there'd be no Obamacare.
two reasons. If you notice, the Republicans haven't passed a single solitary thing. Zero. So ushering through their agenda right now is just stop Biden.
That's because you're trying to spend a lot of money and you're doing stupid stuff, like stopping drilling.
Oh, I shouldn't make it so personal. Stop my administration. That's what the agenda is. It's much easier to stop something than to start something. And look, what we did is when I wrote, I'm going to back up just a second. I apologize. I personally, during the campaign, before I got elected, I wrote the infrastructure bill relating to what we do to highways and all that kind of thing, hard data. And I wrote what they call, what's now called the care economy piece, and it has a gigantic piece of environmental pieces in it too. And I went before the joint session of Congress, and I laid out exactly what I was for. And so I made it clear what I was for. Initially, what happened was I got no support for anything from our Republican friends. And then they said, maybe we can work out a bipartisan deal on infrastructure. And we did. We worked on it. It didn't give me everything I wanted. It didn't have as much money in there for the environment, although it has tens of billions of dollars in there.
What's the environment got to do with infrastructure?
But didn't have what I wanted in it. But we made a bipartisan deal. Now, what's coming along is this reconciliation, they call fancy word for the other pieces that have the child care pieces.
You keep on talking about infrastructure bill. So is this already passed? And you're yelling infrastructure bill for no reason?
Have the economy that relates to allowing people women to go back to work. It has about $450 billion for environmental remediation and so on. And that's the one that is the issue.
Well, let me ask you, just getting to his question, we've talked a lot about Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema. You seem relatively confident you can kind of get Senator Manchin on board. There's a lot of Democrats in the House and Senate who are confused about where Senator Sinema actually stands on things. And I know she's been negotiating directly with you and the White House. What is your read on her? And obviously, you need her to remain positive in your direction, so I don't know what you're going to say. But what is your read on her? Do you know where she stands?
First of all, she's smart as the devil, number one. Number two, she's very supportive of the environmental agenda in my legislation. Very supportive. She's supportive of almost all the things I mentioned relating to everything from family care to all those issues. Where she's not supportive is she says she will not raise a single penny in taxes on the corporate side and/or on wealthy people.
How dare she? She wants everything, but she doesn't want to spend more in taxes. That is disgraceful. How dare she do that?
Period. And so that's where it sort of breaks down. There's a few other issues it breaks down on. But what we're trying to do is reach a point here where I'm able to present to the Senate, they're able to vote on, and the House, a serious piece of legislation that changes the dynamic for working class folks in America and middle class folks, and begins to have the very wealthy and corporate just begin to pay their fair share.
Again, what is fair share? They pay more than everybody else. That guy told you that earlier. And what do you mean by change the dynamic? We need explanations for this.
Not a lot. How we get there, we're down to 4 or 5 issues, which I'm not going to negotiate on national television, as you might guess.
We'd be interested in hearing them if you want.
No, I know. But all kidding aside, I think we can get there.
You talked about the environmental piece. You said Senator Sinema is on board with that. Certainly, Senator Manchin is not. It gets to our next question. This is from Kobe Kong. He's originally from Anaheim, California. He's a sophomore class president at Johns Hopkins University and Democrat. Kobe, what's your question?
Mr. President.
One of the largest issues that people have trouble comprehending the severity of is climate change. Many legislators and politicians today are lenient as they won't have to live with the future effects.
Why not? Apparently there's only 10 years left, or it's 8 years. I realize there's only been 10 years left since the 60s, but apparently there's only 10 years left, and I know the Senate and House people are old, but they aren't that old.
Without the legislative support for the climate aspects of your budget proposal and the Earth rapidly approaching the Paris Agreement's 1.5 degrees limit, what other backup plans do you have to ensure a future for the next generations?
Well, let's... Mr. President, you got it right. The existential threat to humanity is climate change.
Garbage.
And when President Trump pulled out of the Paris Accord, which when I was with the Obama administration, we helped negotiate, the agreement...
Is that why it's so bad? It was a good idea to pull out of that trash legislation. It is impossible to do what you set out to do, and it costs too much to try and do it.
The agreement was that we could not, if we reached beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius increase in temperature, we're gone. Not a joke. Not a joke.
Yes, it is.
And so we decided that he pulled out. First thing I committed to do is rejoin that accord, number one. But number two, what you have to do is you look at there's multiple ways in which we can deal with climate. I'm going off to COP26 in Scotland.
Exactly. You're flying there. Why are you flying there if you really, really, really care and you really believe in this climate stuff?
In, I don't know, I guess it's 2 weeks or a week. I'm losing track of time. And I'm presenting a commitment to the world that we will, in fact, get to net zero emissions on electric power by 2035 and net zero emissions across the board by 2050 or before. But we have to do so much between now and 2030 to demonstrate what we're going to do. So let me give you a couple examples.
Okay, let me just follow up, though, very quickly on that, because the key climate provision that was in the Build Back Better plan, as you call it, the Clean Electricity Performance Program, that's been dropped now from this spending bill.
No, it hasn't.
It has not.
No, look,
but Senator Manchin is opposed to that.
He's opposed to it. But here's the deal. That is only one of well over $1 trillion worth of expenditures for climate change.
I thought you said there was going to be no more expenditure. Now it's $1 trillion, and this is just for the climate hoax. Go nuclear.
It's $150 billion. It's important. And what it says is that if, in fact, the utility doesn't pull back and continue to reduce the amount of carbon that they emit, that what will happen is they will end up paying a penalty. And so there's a penalty incurred.
And that penalty will be put onto us consumers.
Joe Manchin's argument is, look, we still have coal in my state. You're going to eliminate it eventually. We know it's going away. We know it's going to be gone. But don't rush it so fast that my people don't have anything to do.
Which is what he's there for. To do what his people want him to do.
I think that's not what we should be doing. But the fact of the matter is, we can take that $150 billion, add it to the $320 billion that's in the law now that he's prepared to support for tax incentives to have people act in a way that they're going to be able to do the things that need to be done. For example, if you got windows that are the wind's blowing through, you get an incentive to put new windows in your home.
But you should be people do that on their own anyway because they want to save money.
You help get it paid. We are going to significantly reduce the cost of solar panels on your roof. We're going to continually, and for example, there's new battery technologies that are being, I went out in Silicon Valley. There's a battery that's about that wide and about that thick. If you have solar power, you put that in your basement, and the sun doesn't shine for 7 days, you still have all the power you need.
What if you don't have a basement? And again, why isn't anyone talking about nuclear? the cleanest energy around.
But the concession has been agreed to for Senator Manchin about coal in his state. Is that true?
Nothing's been formally agreed to.
I don't want these to go on for too long, so that's the end of that one, and part 2 will be out tomorrow.